video quality is big. It's big, big, big. So if you're repurposing content from your podcast and you're finding you're not getting great results, one of the things that you could do if the quality is not great is you could just take whatever that is and just record a face to camera clip. Hold your phone like this. It doesn't have to be professionally produced, but if you take that same content and you kind of talk through it like it's a native to the platform, then that can work really well if your video content from repurposing isn't that great.
Repurposed content can work. If you don't use AI, finding a good hook, making sure that that content alone provides a micro win for somebody and is valuable. So if you're wondering, how do I get this Instagram thing to work and my reels to pop off as it were, is it just repurposing content? Does that work at all? Did it ever really work? How do I make it work better? From my podcast long form content to YouTube long form content to bringing it up onto Instagram or producing content natively, and how do I get more engagement and grow? How do I grow my account? You're going to like our guest. If you already heard her on the previous episode, well, then you're no stranger to Jodie Brown. And if you haven't, Jamie, I think they're in for a treat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We just had a lovely conversation in the first episode, which you can find, dear listener, below. Click there after you watch this one. So Jodie is a marketing agency owner. She's a marketing educator, podcaster, and international, emphasis on the international, luxury retreat host. This is so cool. Who specializes in helping coaches and educators refine their messaging, play to their strength, create marketing strategies that feel good and work effectively. Jodie found her sweet spot helping coaches and educators get visible and create content that not only builds their brands, but also gets results and reaches the right people, which is what she's back with us to talk about today. Thank you for being here, Jodie.
Thank you for having me again. I'm so excited.
You're very welcome. I feel like we should add, I didn't add before, but we know each other from the Mixer Mind, which is like this really easy to be a part of mastermind that's a year long, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting actually because I think my friend Michelle Knight, who has been on the podcast before, I actually think that she might have told me about your podcast and might have referred us even before we knew we were in the Mixer Mind together, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
definitely.
we had a good session with Michelle
We did.
last year.
Last year. Yeah, towards the
Yeah.
end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very small world. So let's jump right in. Please tell us. I know the listeners like, ooh, Instagram growth. Can you give us a quick, 1 minute short synopsis? What got you here to be able to talk about Instagram growth? We know why we're going to listen to you, but the listener doesn't quite yet, unless they watched the previous episode.
For sure. So I kind of long story short, started out growing my own business, which as a hairstylist with Instagram. And then in 2020, I made the leap into educating other stylists how to get really, really great results. So building their brick and mortar businesses. And along the way, I again was kind of selling my education through Instagram, organically built my audience, organically built my podcast, and organically had these launches, mostly organically, like we said before. Utilizing Instagram as my main platform. I, used it to grow my email list, all of the things, landed really cool opportunities. So I was, asked to speak at events. I was asked to speak in other people's podcasts all of these things, all from building my brand through Instagram. Along the way, a lot of my peers started approaching me, noticing what was happening and saying, hey, can I hire you to help me? Can I hire you to, in done for you in consulting? And so for the last 4 years, almost 5 years now, which, oh my goodness, time flies. It'll be in 11 days from today will be my last day behind the chair. So it has been almost a full 5 years now. I have been helping other entrepreneurs grow their brands and businesses online and get some really cool results. Like, for example, even just last month, one of our agency clients, and I looked at it this morning, it's still going. So far, they've gotten something like 500 plus opt-ins from one organic reel. And so, which fun fact was repurposed content. And so there is so much capacity. I know there's a lot of people who are feeling very frustrated around social media right now, who are feeling like they're not getting the results that they want. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I think there's still so much opportunity from this platform, and I'm excited to share that today.
Very cool. Just what you finished saying. Got 500 opt-ins from repurposed content. Just right there. Okay, is
Mhm.
are you what trends are you seeing? Is making content directly for Instagram working better now, or is repurposed content still working?
Okay, there are several major caveats to this. So that's something I want to make very, very clear. Repurposed content can work. What I see though is more often than not, it doesn't. Yeah, okay, there's several caveats. So more often than not, if you're okay with this, we'll start with kind of like what I'm seeing doesn't work in terms of repurposed content. One of the biggest things is, particularly for us podcasters, is not optimizing the content for social. And so this can be things like framing and things like video quality and all of those different kind of pieces. Anything that doesn't look super native to the platform, I find doesn't do as well. So we can repurpose content, and again, for a couple of my clients, it's actually the best performing content, but it's high quality video. Another thing is, and I know that this is going to be kind of a controversial statement, however, unless you've really figured out a great solution, I have found AI doesn't do a great job at repurposing content because it's not looking for the kind of hooks that we need in order to succeed, right? So when you are repurposing content, you still want to look at all the same things that you would if you were creating it natively, right? So you want to make sure there is a really solid hook, right? So that's going to kind of deliver. You also want to make sure that someone can get value from the content, whether or not they take the next step, right? So if they are, it's almost like you want to give a little micro win when it comes to the content. So if they listen to this clip from your podcast, are they going to get something valuable? Are they going to get a mindset shift, a tip, something that's going to add value to their day? Or is it more kind of for you to just check the box of create content? So that's kind of, these are kind of unpopular opinions a little bit. I told you there was a hot take, but when it comes to repurposing content, I love efficiency, but efficiency cannot come at the expense of effectiveness, which I think is what happens a lot of the time when we're repurposing content. And so if yeah,
I found this true in my business. If you look at my Instagram content all the way up until last summer, there were, maybe 3 or 4 different posts that were pulled from, video.ai or Opus clips from a podcast, and I just noticed that those never did well, and I actually
Mhm.
just discontinued my subscription because it was going on for, like, 3 months, and I didn't know that we weren't using it, but I just had my video editor look himself through the content and pull out clips when I was still doing it, and that worked a lot better. So, I agree.
and that's kind of what, and there's tools that we can use to make it easier. Like, for example, in my agency, I love Descript. Descript is probably, if you had to pry a piece of software out of my cold dead hands, it would be that. I love it so much because it really does like make the video editing process so much easier. And again, it's like you're pulling from that. I think a lot of the time people focus on the wrong thing when it comes to repurposing. And they're like, okay, how can I add a bunch of like really flashy text? And how can I add a bunch of like, different clip shots and all that? And that kind of stuff can be really helpful, but also it doesn't make up for unvaluable content, right? And value doesn't have to be just an educational clip. It can be, but it's paradigm shifting. It's specific, it's unique. It's like that's what we want to look for, because with this flood of efficiency over effectiveness, there is a lot more like bland, generic, not so great content out there. And so if we want to stand out, we need the antithesis of that. We need things that are, story, that are everyday examples, like all of these different things we can do to stand out.
Like doing handstands.
She's referring to the second most recent video that we posted on Instagram.
We're just gonna dance, and then like he's all, I'm gonna do a handstand. You catch my legs. I'm like, what? And we were just dying laughing, making this reel. It was.
I can't wait to see this.
It's already out there. You can
Yeah.
you can go see it now. Go to our
I love it.
Instagram, and then if you want a good laugh.
Okay. Now because of the listener too, I'm gonna link this link.
As fun as it sounds though, like it honestly, a visual hook can go a long way. So it's going to be different for everyone. Like maybe it's, if that's on brand for you, a handstand, I love that. There's so many other different ways. There's so many ways we can grab that attention and be scroll stopping, right? Just give that little bit extra to catch attention.
Yeah.
All right. So then what I took away from what you just shared was that repurposed content can work if you don't use AI and are very specific about going in, finding a good hook, making sure that that content alone provides a micro win for somebody and is valuable. Is that accurate?
Yes, and by doing that, it's actually going to make them a lot more likely to do what you wanted them to do anyway, if you're a podcaster who's repurposing, and go listen to the episode, right? Because, people don't just want like, and there's a lot of things that are fatiguing audiences on social media too, right? Like for example, one of the things that was working really well for a short period of time was those really short reels where it's like, read the caption for more, right? People got burnt out by that because they're like, I don't want to read the caption. Just tell me what you're saying. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the 1 second reels, like it just kind of it's like anything. It's like one of my favorite phrases as a marketer, I think all of us love this, is zig where other people zag, right? Once everyone starts doing something all the time, not that there isn't a place for trends, because there is, like there's some nuance to this, but like all of those things, like people start to get really annoyed by them. And that was kind of the general sentiment with that. So what I find is, for a podcaster, if right now you're just like, unless you have something really juicy. Like if this is like, say you're interviewing some celebrity who's done something like absolutely wild, then you're like, listen to this interview with Taylor Swift where she talks about, the Super Bowl or whatever. Then you can probably have a trailer, like style clip, and that's fine. For the majority of podcasters though, that like, just like a little bit of a hook, but that feels a little bit clickbaity, that is working less well than just excellent content and then saying, comment podcast or comment X to listen in on the rest of this. Here's what we're going to cover. So it's more like, if you liked this, then check out this type vibe versus a trailer. And so that's an example. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention video quality. Video quality is big. It's big, big, big. So when you are like, here's kind of an example. If you're repurposing content from your podcast and you're finding you're not getting great results, one of the things that you could do, if the quality is not great, is you could just take whatever that is and just record a face to camera clip. Just record, like, hold your phone like this. It doesn't have to be professionally produced, but if you take that same content and you kind of talk through it like it's a native to the platform content, it's still the same messaging, and then you can say your keyword, like your ManyChat keyword, which is what I recommend for getting people to go to the next phase. If you're a podcaster, then that can work really well if your video content from repurposing isn't that great.
So I like that. That's something I've never heard before. And you also said mini chat several times. So are you favoring mini chat for clients over sending folks to the link in the bio?
I am. And the reason for that is twofold. So, number one, I think of it as like a white glove, kind of like concierge experience, right? Like you can have those, and you can even take it a step further. For sometimes I'll kind of play around with comment Apple or comment Spotify, and then you can send them that link directly to the platform that they are listening to, right? So it's delivering that. Also, there's less distractions along the way because we think as creators, which is funny because we don't think about this like this as consumers, but we think as creators that when someone listens, like looks at your content, they're dropping everything, they're consuming all the content, they're going to the link in bio, they're signing up for the podcast episode, they're listening to it right there. But what probably actually happens more often than not is they look at your post, they love it, their kid needs a drink, right? Maybe the phone rings, maybe someone texts them, maybe a notification pops up, da 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 da. There's a lot of things that can happen between going to your post, clicking on your profile, and going and consuming whatever's in the link in your bio. Versus if they comment, that's in their inbox regardless of whether or not they're distracted or not, right? So when they open the app again, they're having that little piece of content, that little nugget, and they're thinking, oh, maybe I'll go listen to this now that I have time. So that's kind of the first piece. The second piece is when people are commenting on your content, it's boosting your engagement, which is then going to show that content to more people. So I think it's kind of a win-win, honestly, when it comes to ManyChat.
I keep seeing that, like, please don't see the link in my bio anymore because it's just not working. So
Yeah, and I think there is definitely truth to that. Like I think that when you should definitely have your link in bio optimized but I think the more likely path for people is going to be not that you told them to go to the link in your bio, it's more they see a piece of content, they click over to your page, or maybe someone mentions you in their Instagram story or whatever, and then it's optimized for new visitors, right? When you go. So that's kind of the difference. Like there's a couple different journeys, there's a couple different ways that someone can get there, but I think the like go to the link in my bio from an Instagram post, like it would be more rare for that to happen, I would say, at this day and age.
Okay.
right.
All right.
Kind of like what we say with with a lead magnet, when people opt in, like have it go directly to like that opt-in page or a thank you page and not to your website where they're going to get lost looking at all the other things that they could be distracted by on there. So, right, exactly. Keep it simple. So, um, speaking of, like, what about those call to actions? How do we make those more effective?
One of the biggest things that I have noticed in terms of a change would be to have them in multiple spots. So if you have a carousel post, don't just have it be at the end of the caption, like put it on the slide, put it on the video, like actually have it everywhere so that they're more likely to see it. And then also, everyone has made a post with a call to action that people didn't follow. So don't think of it always as the call to action's fault. Either maybe they just didn't get there. Maybe they didn't get to that point. Like, so I think just having that call to action be there without being attached to it, because, you know, like same thing. Like you'll have posts where they won't do well. You'll have posts where they'll go off. And I think we need to kind of detach a little bit from this expectation that every single time we post a call to action, we're going to get a million comments. And I mention that because I've seen so many people get discouraged, like the first couple times they try it, that they stop doing it. It works. It still works.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, you have a social media agency who is getting results for your clients on Instagram. And we started by asking repurposing content versus making native content. And while you gave caveats for how repurposed content can work, what works for making native content to Instagram right now that you're seeing?
So there's a few things that work. Like I always think about, and after publishing like thousands of pieces of content to dozens of different accounts over the last, few years with the agency. I think the biggest thing to be aware of is that no two accounts are going to be exactly the same, right? No two audiences are going to be exactly the same. So the first thing I always look at is what has worked for you historically and how can we bring more of that in? So, for example, does your audience like it when you are sharing like a hot take? Do they like it when you are sharing more step by step how to content? What is actually working for your account, and start there? Because whenever we look at a strategy, we like to meld kind of like what's already working with some testing, and also like looking for patterns with someone's content so that we can kind of like weave new ideas into existing, well, like content that performs well. So, for example, if you are someone who is teaching photographers like how to run their business, and you notice that every single time you post about social media marketing, right? That is something that goes off for your people. Then how can you weave that into the hooks of some of your other content? Like how can you be like, maybe the thing that's like social media won't help your business do this, but this will, for example. So you're mentioning what's working for your client, you're mentioning what they're into, and then you're kind of using that to weave into your other topics and other ideas that you want to share with them. So that's like one of the number one things because it is different for every account and every person. Also, different accounts do better with certain types of content. And so, like, I have some clients where carousels go off like nothing else, even now. And a lot of people think reels are the only way to get traction. That's not always the case, right? Or is it B-roll reels are doing well? Some people just do face to camera content. That's it. And it works really, really well for them. The other thing that I always want people to think about is when you get a post that hits, don't just think, "Oh, that was great," and then move on. Think, "How can I like leverage and squeeze every single drop out of this post idea?" Like if it was a carousel, record it as a face to camera post. If it is, make it a B-roll reel, make it another carousel with a slightly different hook. Like really, really go in on this because repetition equals reputation. And that is what is required to build your brand in the online space.
Well, that's an
That's
Instagrammable
good.
quote. I should have been recording that.
Right?
Repetition equals reputation, and that's what's required to grow in the Instagram space.
Yes. Yeah, that is 100% something that makes a huge difference. And then also like I said before, I kind of alluded to this at the top of the episode, but there's so many fringe benefits beyond just the visibility of an individual post, right? Like you want to think about, I always think about it as like a patchwork quilt. Like if someone comes to your Instagram page, is it extremely obvious what it is you do? Is it extremely obvious like what you sell also? Like that's an important piece, right? Whether you put that in your highlights, whether you put that, in your link in your bio, we want to make sure that your goal for your audience is going to be very obvious to them when they land on your page. So when it comes to content, that is a big piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle. Like each individual piece of content should lead towards the goal, and so I think that's something a lot of people don't think about. Um, the other thing I want to mention too, when it comes to content, is not every piece of content has to quote unquote do well in the algorithm in order to be worth posting. Like I post stuff all the time that I know is not going to get great reach, but it is going to get me DMs, right? It's going to get my people who are paying close attention to reach out to me. Like I posted something the other day and it got like I don't know, a like quite low amount of likes for me, but I got 3 DMs from people who were like, "Tell me more about your program." So really balancing that desire for, great metrics, because we do want to maximize visibility, but not at the expense of great messaging. And I really encourage people, especially now when the way that we use Instagram has changed a little bit. It's a great brand building platform, and we can and do optimize for visibility, but don't get caught up in that validation addiction. Think about it as a tool to grow your business.
Mm,
There we go.
I like it. Mm, good stuff.
Jodie, where can somebody follow up and meet you, find and learn more from you?
So, I do have a resource that I'm going to gift to your listeners called the Social Pulse 2025. And essentially, it's going to go into how you can update your messaging to resonate. We didn't get a chance to get into it in this episode, but there are things you can do to take the content that was working for you, in 2023, and update it so that it starts to hit and resonate again in 2025. And you can find that at www.aligncreativecode.com/art for the Art of Online Business listeners. This is a paid training you can get on my website, but we're going to gift it to your listeners because I think it's important to really get the nuance and follow up on your own strategy. You can also find me at my podcast, The Visionary Rising. We talk all things marketing, mindset, and what goes into being an entrepreneur over there, or on Instagram at It's Jodie Brown.